in Matthew, the first chapter. And this gives the generations of Jesus Christ. And so as you look through these generations of Jesus Christ, you'll find various type of mothers in these genealogies. And sometimes people don't want to read them, but if you read them and you see what that mother was and what she did, then you can get kind of an understanding that not all mothers or that perfect type of pictured mother that is portrayed by the world, but nevertheless these are some of the women that was in Jesus's lineage, that lets you know that they're important. But some of them had some different things going on with them. So without further ado, let's start reading from Matthew, the first chapter. And it says, the book of generations of Jesus Christ, the son of David, the son of Abraham. Abraham begot Isaac, and Isaac begot Jacob, and Jacob begot Judas and his brethren. And Judas begot Pharez and Zerah and Tamar. So let's stop right there. Judas begot Pharez and Zerah with Tamar. And we're not trying to leave out Abraham's wife, but we hear about her quite a bit. So let's start with Tamar. So the story with Tamar goes as this: is Tamar was married to one of his Judas's sons, and his son was evil, and so he died. And then she was marrying the other one. He was evil, and he died. And so to shorten the story up, because we don't have so much time, Judas had promised her certain things. So what Tamar did is she went up into the city, like the metropolitan area, and she dressed up and she played the harlot. And Judas went up there to sleep with the prostitute, and he ended up sleeping with Tamar. And Tamar ended up having 2 children from Judas. And he had this to say. He said that she was more righteous than he was. And so through these children, that's part of the lineage of Jesus Christ. So what you have here is a girl who played the harlot, but yet still, she's still part of the story. So there's so many times that we have young women and old women that may have played the harlot in their lives, but it doesn't take them out of the story. That doesn't mean that they are thrown away. That doesn't mean that they're not to be honored even as mothers, because people changed. They're part of our life story as men and as women. So we cannot ignore that. Not to say that we condone what was done, but it's part of the story. But nevertheless, her name is still written here in the Bible, because God did not ignore her being part of the story. And so let's continue on verse 4. And Abraham begot Abinadab, and I may not be saying these words, these names correctly. And Abinadab begot Nasian, and Nasian begot Salmon, and Salmon begot Boaz of Rahab. And so now we have Rahab. We have Rahab the harlot. And so if you look in Hebrews 11, it mentions Rahab the harlot. And so here's what Rahab did. If you remember the story of Jericho, when they came to walk around and march around the walls of Jericho, and I believe it was Caleb, and before those walls was going to come tumbling down, there were some spies that were sent in the land to spy out the land. Well, Rahab hid those spies. And she was a prostitute on the wall, but she hid those spies. She feared the Lord more than she feared the king. And so she hid those spies because she was worried about the Lord. And they made her a promise. They said, whoever you can get in your house, they'll be saved from the destruction. And we'll know that you're there by throwing out a scarlet cord out the window. So whoever this prostitute can get in her house, because she was moved by fear, and trusted in, and basically trusted in the Lord and had faith in the Lord, because that's when she's in Hebrews 11, the Hall of Fame of Faith. And so she saved her family. A harlot, a prostitute who trusted in the Lord and got her family and anyone that was in there into her house, because she was feared the Lord and hid the spies, was able to save her family. That would be like a streetwalker on the corner, hear that the Lord is coming and trouble's coming, and she gathered everybody in her house that she loved, that would trust her, and she prayed and trusted in the Lord, and she saved them. So even a streetwalker can be part of the story of salvation. Amen. And so let's keep on reading. It says, Boaz begot Obadiah of Ruth. And we know that Ruth was the Moabite, and her husband had died. And Naomi was her mother-in-law, and Naomi tried to send her back. But Ruth said, basically, your God's going to be my God, and she was going to trust it in the Lord. And so as she trusted in the Lord, she ended up running into Boaz, the kinsman redeemer. And he had said this about her, that she was not like the other women. Even though she was a Moabitess, but she had been converted to Judaism, that she didn't run around like the younger women, but she worked hard and she loved her mother, and she did what was right. And so he ended up marrying her, and she ended up saving the day and having children. And Naomi says she was better than 7 sons. So we here have a widow with a widower and these 2 women that struggled, but they held on to the Lord. And that's part of the story of salvation, the kinsman redeemer. So we have one lady who prayed the harlot, one lady who was a harlot, one lady who was a widow who was struggling, but yet and still they're all mothers, and they all played a role. Let's keep on reading. It says, Obadiah begot Jesse, and Jesse begot David the king, and David the king begot Solomon of her that had been the wife of Uriah. So you remember Bathsheba, she's in the story as well. Remember, David took and slept with her. She had a child by David, and he had her husband killed, but that particular child died. But he had another child who was Solomon, who would be king. So here we have a woman who was in an adulterous relationship, who had a child by someone who wasn't her husband, but yet and still, she's still in the story. She's not counted out, and her name is written down here too. Even her ex-husband or her husband who was killed, his name is written down here too. So we have a bunch of different type of women all within the story. Then we have, because of time, then we have Mary, the mother of Jesus, who was the greatest woman of all, according to the Bible. And, she was the Virgin Mary. And she didn't have that type of story. She had a whole different story, praising God and stuff, even from a young age. But regardless of where these women come from or where their story is, they were all mothers. They're all written in here, and they're all remembered. And so I would like to encourage everyone to remember your mother, to honor your mother, especially if she had you. Because there's many moms who didn't, that maybe later on did or did not, and there's a lot of stuff going on with that. But yet and still, even the ones who didn't, they're still mothers, and that child is going to be in heaven. And so we know that for those women who have lost their child and was trying to hold on to their child, that child is in heaven. And you're still a mother, and we still honor you on Mother's Day. Because let's face it, if there was no mothers, there would be no us. Because that's how people come into the world, is through their mother. And the mother's loving touch and understanding and teaching. Even the apostle talked about, I think it was Timothy, remember your grandmother Eunice and what your mother had done for you, and stir up the gifts, and how those grave women taught the children how to love the Lord, and how to teach, how they taught how the women how to love their husbands is very important. So today we honor mothers, And no matter what your mother is or what she did, make sure you tell her you love her on today. And if she's passed, just think about her and the good things about her. And make sure that you take time to honor mothers.